Namaste students, I hope you are all ready to join with me for a short safari ride. Just imagine yourself as you are also there in the jeep along with those people, observing the magnificent lion with its lion cub there, the magnanimous elephant with a baby elephant or its calf, the hippopotamus enjoying its time with its young one, calf, turtle. You can see the turtle hatchling just coming out of the egg, tiger enjoying with its cub, showing its maximum love, buffalo spending time with his young one, deer looks really attractive, and we also see the deer with its fawn, giraffe, a real tall organism with its young one, calf, monkey and its infant. We also see the peafowl with a pea chick, rhinoceros and its calf, lemur and its pups, cheetah and its cubs. So when we just see all these organisms, it looks amazing, as if we have gone into that place and spending time with them. Let us just have a thought. When we saw these organisms, we saw all the organisms with their young ones. What does it reflect? Yes, that's a topic we are going to introduce today. How do organisms reproduce? So when we see organisms, we saw the elephant, the lion, monkey, deer. Many organisms are there and they have to reproduce. What is reproduction? So when we see reproduction, therefore what is reproduction? Reproduction is a biological process that leads to production of new individuals of the same species. So here we see a lot of pictures. Reproduction is not only for a unicellular organism. For example, if we take amoeba, the parent divides and then we have the young one resembling that of the parent. We have the hydra, maybe a multicellular organism, but still we find it is a microscopic organism. So here also we find that they divide. The young one appears like that of the parent. We have plants. They sometimes grow through the seeds, sometimes with the help of a runner, you find another young plant can also be grown. We have the lion and its cub. We have the young one with the deer, and of course a family. So reproduction is a biological process that leads to production of new individuals of the same species. Fine. If we consider this to be a reproduction process, then why is that reproduction is not considered as a basic life process activity? There we find reproduction takes a lot of energy and also takes a lot of effort. Now here is where we see a mother has to carry the young one in the womb, has to carry over a period of 9 to 9.5 months. Is a real need of a lot of energy. Even after the delivery, the mother has to take care of the child and has to nourish the child. So everywhere you find there is going to be a lot of energy as well as a lot of effort that has to be put. Second, we find if we see the kitten here and we see the cat, we do not say that the kitten has been needed to be alive on its own. See, reproduction is not needed for the individuals to stay alive. The child can just grow from the mother. The lion and its cub, each individual organism, you find that they do not need reproduction just to stay alive. So that is the only reason we consider reproduction cannot be taken as the basic life processes. Then why should organism reproduce? What is the need for it? That is where we find it is necessary for the species to survive. If suppose an organism is there and it is not able to reproduce, you find generation is not going to be there, possible for the organism to become extinct. So in that case, if that species has to be there on the earth, definitely you find reproduction plays a very, very important role. Coming over to the second one, only when there is going to be reproduction, you find the population to growth is also going to take place. Now here we find, even nowadays we keep hearing about the good forest, the lion is actually becoming extinct, the number of lion is becoming lesser. All these are problem. If reproduction is not going to be done over there, automatically the species can vanish in the near future. So we have to take care, and we see the population growing with the different species over there. So that is the main reason where we find reproduction plays a role. If reproduction has to do that, that means there should be some stability. How is this stability going to be possible? To recollect from your 9th standard, you would have studied something about the cellular structure of the organisms, where you would have just studied about the nucleus. Inside the nucleus, you would have studied something about chromosomes. What are they important for? Perfect. They are important for carrying the hereditary characters from one generation to that of the other. So the DNA actually plays a major role in carrying the genetic character from one generation to that of the other. So therefore, we find there should be a blueprint. If I'm just going to take a cat and a kitten, they look alike. If I take a puppy and a dog, they look alike. We will be just able to observe a child from the mother. So all these happens, the basic behind it is because they have a perfect blueprint. Means the similar body design will be there. New individuals are similar to each other and to their parent. How is that blueprint going to be maintained? How is it going to be possible? That is where you find the number of chromosomes should be maintained. How is this number of chromosomes going to be maintained? Every time when the cell is going to divide, you find that the DNA has to do copying, or in other words, they have to duplicate. So when they are going to duplicate, you find all the duplicated cell chromosomes cannot be in one place. They have to be pushed over to another cell. In that case, it also needs some cellular apparatus. So we do observe the cellular apparatus also duplicating. When both these are duplicating, you find one cell divides into two. So where you find that the number of chromosomes in both the cell, it's going to be the same. As a result, the blueprint is going to remain the same. Good. But whenever we find there is a duplication going to take place, you find no biochemical reaction is absolutely reliable. Means there is not going to be 100% replica. Definitely there is going to be some error. That is where you find it leads to variation. If this variation is not going to be there, let us see what is going to happen. Suppose if a teacher just enters a class and sees everyone alike, how am I to identify who's whom? If suppose in your own family, you, your brother, your sister, your father, mother, grandfather, everyone is going to be 100% replica. Are we going to identify? It's going to be very difficult. So variation does play an important role. So if I enter a class like this, I'm able to easily identify who is going to be Ravi, who is going to be Ram or Akshay or whatever the name is. I'm able to easily identify them. The reason it is possible is because DNA duplication always causes an error which leads to variation. So that is going to be highly benefited. Fine. If you're going to see it's highly benefited, that means what are the significance for this variation? We find that it results in new characters, easy to identify. One of the simple things, we have so many kittens. At one slot, you find a cat gives many kittens. If everything is going to be 100% replica, sometimes we may not be able to identify them. But we do see because of the DNA variations, they look different. and we love keeping names for them. So therefore, you find it is easy to identify. Sometimes you find some variation can occur in such a situation. You find the organism has to adapt themselves to the changes. If they are not able to adapt themselves to the environmental changes, that is where you find it becomes highly complicated. You find that the organism may not be able to survive. It becomes extinct. Like one of the very good examples we can talk is all about the dinosaurs. And then you find, I just want to give one more example. Suppose, say for example, in a temperate region, I'm just trying to take few organisms there, and these organisms are going to be the bacteria in this particular temperate region. And these bacteria are able to survive in that particular climatic condition. But because of its reproduction, there are possible for some variation to arise. Say for example, the variation ones are something like this, and they also can reproduce. Now what exactly happens? The place where they are living is called as an environmental niche. An organism is more comfortable to its surrounding. This environmental niche can be affected by some natural calamities. For example, the temperature can change. Or you find it can be a meteorite which is hitting on that place. It can be an earthquake, it can be a tsunami, something which is disturbing the organism. Now here we find the green color ones which I've just placed first is the bacteria which are actually living in the temperate region, very comfortable with a low temperature. Due to global warming, the temperature has shooted up. Those which have shown the variations are able to survive in the new variety, new climatic condition. The other organisms are not able to survive in the new climatic condition. So what happens to them? You find them, they are being taken away, eliminated. Either they die and they go off and they are not able to survive. So the remaining one which is left over there are considered to be the variety which is going to be very, very comfortable in the new environmental conditions. So that is why we say helps the organisms to adapt to the environmental changes. Variation also leads to evolution. So we find here is a small example to show, to make us understand how variation actually leads to evolution. Let's go for a quick question answer session just for what we have understood. Is reproduction an important activity in our day-to-day life? Can I get an answer from you? The answer is no. Why it is no? Because we just found out the two important activities. Reproduction is not needed for an organism to stay alive, and reproduction needs a lot of effort and energy. So that is the reason it is not needed in a day-to-day life process. We quickly go for another question. Is there an error? If there is an error in the DNA duplication, what does it lead to? Your answer is correct. It is leading to variation, which is making an organism survive. Fine. So we were just studying something about DNA and its variation. We'll get into the topic a little more deeper. I'm still continuing with my introduction, where we're just going over to the major types of reproduction. The major types of reproduction is two. We call that to be as asexual reproduction and the sexual reproduction. What is asexual reproduction? It involves only one parent, one single organism giving rise to another new individual. There is no formation of sex organs and no fusion of gametes. The young ones formed are almost identical. The reason they are identical is you find there is not much of variation taking place during the DNA copying, and it is just one organism. They just have to split and they have to form another new individual. As a result, they're going to be identical to each other as well as to the parental cell. When we talk about asexual reproduction, can occur in two important conditions. First one, we find it takes place in a favorable environmental condition. What do you mean by the word favorable? Means there is going to be abundance of food, climatic condition is excellent, water availability is going to be there. All that we consider as a favorable condition. Like for example, we find one of the unicellular organism just undergoing binary fission. There we find one organism just dividing into two daughter cells. In detail explanation, we'll go into the depth when we study about the asexual reproduction. Then we have Hydra, that is budding in Hydra. The young one which is formed, this is a multicellular organism. Young one which is formed is also identical. And these are situations where you find the climatic condition is favorable. Coming over to the next one is the asexual reproduction can also reproduce in an unfavorable condition. That is where we find it is going to be the plasmodium. What exactly happens? You find the organism is not very comfortable with the surrounding. They form a cyst. They protect themselves. They keep on dividing many times. When the condition becomes favorable, you find that the cyst opens out and many daughter cells will be coming. Again, furthermore explanation of this, we'll study in the depth of asexual reproduction. We quickly go over to the next type of reproduction as an introduction. We find the sexual reproduction. Definitely, the mode of reproduction takes place in the involvement of two individuals of two different sexes. That is, there has to be a male as well as a female. Where do we observe it? We observe it in plants, in animals, in human beings. And you find the sexual reproduction. During the sexual reproduction, the male organism, this is especially in the case of a human we are just discussing, is going to have the male sex organ which produces a male gamete called sperm. When we talk about the sperm is very small and motile. The female organism gives out the ova, which is a gamete, which is supposed to be large, and it stores the food for the young one which just starts developing. When this sperm fuses with this ova, you find it forms a zygote, and that is the new individual. So is there any significance for the sexual reproduction? We find sexual reproduction involves the DNA as well as the cellular apparatus of different organisms which promotes the diversity. Each one of us are different in our own family, whether it's going to be father, mother, children. We find we have a variation observed over them. Since gametes are derived from two different organisms, it results in a new combination of gene which increases the chances of genetic variation. The last bit, we find the sexual reproduction involves division in the sex organ that plays a major role. You find that the DNA number has to be balanced. So in the sex organs, you find that the number of DNA is being divided. So when two different gametes fuse together, you find the zygote will start maintaining the same number of chromosomes as that of the parent chromosomes as such. So this is what we see, and we will just quickly go ahead with one multiple choice question, recollecting what we have just studied so far. The reason for the greatest similarities among the offspring produced by the asexual reproduction is, you've been given different options over there. Asexual reproduction involves only one parent. Is it correct? Asexual reproduction involves two parents. No. So asexual reproduction involves one parent. We can pick it up. Asexual reproduction involves gametes. No. Asexual reproduction does not involve gametes. Yes. So the option is 1 and 4, and we observe it in D. For the next, which of the following statements are true for the sexual reproduction? There are 4 options given, and you are being asked to choose any 2. The first one says the male gamete involved in sex reproduction is large, contains reserve food. No. Which does it store? It's actually the female gamete. So this is not going to be the right answer. The mechanism through which the DNA is copied during the sexual reproduction are not absolutely accurate. Perfectly correct statement, because we find that there is going to be some error which is going to be caused. So this is a correct statement. It's true. Only one parent is involved in sexual reproduction. No. We just discussed that it's going to be male and the female gamete. Female organism has to be involved. So this is not accepted. Sexual reproduction leads to variation in the genetic material of offsprings. Perfect. So these 2 B and D are the correct options. So we have just introduced this particular topic. In our next module, we'll be studying in detail about the asexual mode of reproduction. Namaste.